Cool. On whenever you're ready.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. Pleasure e-meeting everyone here. Hopefully you can see my screen. Okay,
Yes.
awesome. So before we get into it, what are we going to be, who is this presentation really for? It's an introduction for angel investors and startup founders. So this is not a technical deep dive into the technical implementations of AI, but it's really an overview of the capabilities, possibilities, and the potential landmines. So with that, let's get started. AI beyond the hype and buzz, and not this buzz. We're going to talk about this buzz of AI, that you're going to make tons and tons of money because it's AI. Is it true? Is it not true? So let's kind of first kick this off with a little intro about myself. You know, who am I and why am I qualified to talk to you guys? So my name's On. I am an engineer. I have an MBA. I have a master's in entrepreneurship, and then I have executive education on the application of AI from MIT. I've been working on AI since 15 years as an engineer. I worked on UAVs and tanks, predictive data. At Amazon, I spent 7 years where I worked on Alexa, first on the devices side, then on Alexa shopping. I worked at FiscalNote, which is the #1 AI and ML application in public regulatory space, and an OpenAI partner. And currently, I'm the founder and CEO of Amos, which is personalizing education using AI. I also run a consulting company called Innovation Consultants. My angel experience has been with, of course, Seattle Angel Conference that I joined a year and a half ago, as well as Keiretsu Forum. So that's kind of my background, coming from engineering, going into business, and then entrepreneurship. Before we kind of get into the details of AI, I want to talk a little bit, about some technologies that we've seen before. And, I want you guys to think about these technologies and ask yourself, what is common about all of these technologies? IoT, 5G, wearables, 3D printing, virtual reality, blockchain, quantum computing, virtual assistants, and there's tons more to talk about, more technologies out there that I don't list here. But these technologies had immense potential, promises, and pipe dreams to some extent. And so, what happens to pipe dreams? They crash and burn. So, if we don't remember the past, we're condemned to repeat it. So is AI really one of those technologies that is going to fizzle out, or is this like the internet? It's a game changer and it's going to change everything. And how do you figure out which company is going to be part of that revolution and which company is really a buzz and hype? So in this presentation, we're gonna do three things. First, we're gonna look at a mental model to understand AI. What is AI? What does it mean? How to think about it? Then we're gonna look at a framework for evaluating any AI company that comes in and either pitches or is raising money, either as an entrepreneur or as a VC. How do you think about these? And then we will lead into questions about AI startups. What are the questions you as angels, VCs should be asking, and what are the questions that entrepreneurs should be prepared to answer, either on the slides or as follow-ups? So let's get into the mental model first. So let's start off, language is important. If I say AI and I understand one thing and you understand something else, then we're not on the same page. So the first question really is, what is artificial intelligence? The artificial piece is easy to understand. It's made or produced by human beings. It could be a robot or a software in our context here. So that's fairly straightforward. Intelligence is a little harder to define. What is intelligence? How do you define intelligence? So the definition that has been agreed upon more or less within the community of technologists and entrepreneurs and VCs is really by this gentleman here, Howard Gardner. Intelligence is the ability to solve problems or to create products that are valued within one or more cultural settings. So that's kind of the definitions, the definition that we've kind of settled on. And the reason that's important is so that when we communicate, we're on the same page. And so, okay, that's awesome. We've defined artificial intelligence. The next question is, okay, how do we measure it? Is there an IQ test that we can do to figure out is this AI or is this not AI? If I write a piece of software, is it AI or not? So this gentleman here, Alan Turing, created a test to figure out if it's to measure AI. And how does the test work? The test works like this: you take a robot, you put it there, or a software. You take a human, you put the human there, and then you put a wall. And on the other side of the wall is another human, and you let the human communicate with the robot and the human on the other side of the wall. And if the human cannot figure out if they're talking to a human or a robot, who's the human and who's the robot, then that's true AI. That's real high-level intelligence. And this is, why is this important? This is really important because the more a software or a robot can mimic humans and give the impression of being a human, the more valuable it becomes, because that becomes natural interaction. And in the context of the definition that we had on the previous slide, it becomes more and more human-like, so it's more valuable. So with that, that's kind of how you measure AI. But let's get a little deeper into it. What are the kind of models that we can view AI through? And this one is my favorite one. This is the cognitive pyramid. So you start at the bottom. At the bottom is reactive machines. They react to inputs based on rules, no broad context or history. Then on top of that, there are limited memory machines. These are our software. These use the past to inform the future. So observations are not stored permanently, but they use past to inform future. Then on top of that is really the theory of mind. These software or robots can understand emotions, beliefs, thoughts, and they have an ability to interact socially. And then at the top is kind of that sentient, intelligent, self-aware AI. And anyone wants to guess, where would a chatbot fit? Of course, at the bottom here. And so anyone wants to guess where Kiva Robot is Amazon Robotics, now rebranded into Amazon Robotics. It's really those machines that go out and pick and pack your orders. Where do you think those fit? And you can come off mute and kind of just say the answer, or say it in the chat if you want.
Limited memory.
Sort of. We're still down here at reactive machines because they're not remembering anything from the past to inform future. Although there is a computer that tells them where to go, what to look, but they are still kind of at the bottom. They're starting to rise in reactive machines. Google search engine is still down there. Amazon search starts to come a little higher because now it remembers what you ordered before and it tries to customize your views. If you look at Nest, your thermostats, those are more limited memory machines because they are trying to, they do remember. When you turn it up or down, they will remember that, and they'll try to based on your past or what you're doing, kind of react in the future. So they do have limited memory. If we keep going, Tesla, if it has to change lanes, what's in the other lane, etc. So it's a little higher there. Alexa itself, smart displays or Google Assistant, but Alexa specifically, again, remembers your past orders and tries to customize it, remembers what you watched on Prime. So you'll see more of that information pop up. Same with Netflix, if you watch something, it kind of, each one of those banners that are on there, it customizes it for you based on your past behavior. And OpenAI kind of fits, it's still limited memory, but it starts to kind of get a little higher there. But we've got a long ways to go. There is a hidden future. There's no theory of mind at this point in time. There's no self-aware. And I think some of the things that people may find disturbing when they chat with OpenAI is that it kind of gives you a sense or a feeling that you are in the theory of mind area, because it makes mistakes, it does all sorts of behavior that you attribute to a human. But you have to remember, it does not understand anything. If you tell it what's red, it doesn't know what red really means. It is only a probabilistic model that is based on past data, is trying to predict what you're looking for. And we have a slide on that, so we'll talk a little more in terms of what ChatGPT and large language models are. But this is sort of an overall way of looking at AI. Where does it fall, and why is this important? Again, it's important because the higher a pure AI play is in this pyramid, the more valuable it becomes. That's not to say that something that's way down in reactive machine is not valuable. It depends on the application. What is it doing? But generally speaking, it's safe to say that the higher you are, the more valuable that technology in itself is. So this is pretty complicated. If we wanted to simplify it a little bit, there is another kind of mental construct that's based on purpose and capabilities. There is narrow AI or weak AI. It's specific to tasks without general human-like intelligence. Everything that we've seen so far falls into narrow AI. And general AI can do a wide range of tasks, understand and learn. So while we're kind of knocking at the door of that with some of the transformer models that can do unsupervised learning, but we're not there. We are still in narrow AI phase. Yet another model to kind of look at some of these technologies is this one here. And this one is really technology and domain based. So you've got machine learning, natural language processing, expert systems, vision, speech, robotics. And if you want to really kind of think of it, you can think of it as the human brain or what you do. You've got motor functions, you speak, you see, you hear, you talk to other people. So those are some of the things, some of the ways you can think about AI. And I can get a little deeper if you'd like. What is ML? The core idea behind machine learning is to create systems that can automatically improve their performance over time without explicitly being programmed. And we'll take a look at a neural network, which ChatGPT is. NLP aims to enable computers to understand, interpret, and generate and respond to human language that is human-like and meaningful and useful, et cetera, et cetera. So I won't go over each one of those, but this is another framework that you can use to think about AI technologies and what it is doing. And the important thing here is your use. What are you using it for? If you've got a robot that is supposed to go out and pick and pack, do you really need expert systems or vision or speech? Maybe you do, but maybe you don't. So that is really one of the ways, if you've got this framework, to apply it onto a startup and say, okay, what are you trying to achieve and which technology are you using? And we'll talk about that in the framework of how to evaluate AIs in a few minutes. Let me kind of take a breather there before I continue. Any questions? And I'm not able to see the chat, Fish. If there are any in the chat, if you could let me know.
Will do. There isn't any questions in the chat yet. I think people here are all, very knowledgeable in this field.
Okay, awesome. So I will continue. So let's jump into ChatGPT. Everyone's talking about it. What is ChatGPT and why is it so interesting? And what is it good for and what is it not good for? So ChatGPT is really a large language model built on neural network technology. Neural network is kind of the neurons of the brain. That's the picture here of an actual neuron. And then on the right side, I've got a kind of simplified diagram of how it works. We'll kind of walk through it in a minute. This technology is self-learning, and essentially it's predictive text. So it uses the past data to inform the future. How it works is really there's an input layer, there's a hidden layer, and there's an output layer. And there's pre-training to it where you give it some training data and you get an output and you tell it if it's wrong or if it's right. And then based on that, it changes the weights in the hidden layer. And this is a simplified diagram. Of course, there's many, many more neurons in the middle. There's many, many more weights. And this is transformer technology. What is the difference between transformer and the technologies we had before? Well, the transformer technology, the previous technology was sequential. So if you said the sky is, now the next word should be blue, red, orange, yellow, it would only focus on the next word. It did not understand context. The thing that's different with ChatGPT and these transformer models is they focus on the overall context of the sentence, of the paragraph, of what you're trying to do, and not just on the next word. The other thing is it's unsupervised learning. So there's pre-training where you tell it some stuff, but then you just give it data and it trains itself. In the example that I was saying, the sky is, and it'll say, okay, it's red. And it will look at the text data unsupervised and go, oh, it isn't red, it's blue. So I got it wrong. Let me reweight it, and so on and so forth. So it can learn by itself. That's the other beauty of this of ChatGPT. So let's look at a few of the strengths and the weaknesses of ChatGPT. So this is your typical SWOT kind of model. Strengths, it generates human-like text. It's search on steroids. So what does that mean? Google came along, it has the page rank system. It would go and figure out based on an algorithm, if you search for a certain thing, how many links that page has, how updated it is, etc., etc. But it did not read the document. ChatGPT actually reads the document. It actually goes into a PDF file and reads all of it. A use case could be, hey, I'm a lawyer and I have a case in front of me, and I have to find precedent. And there is thousands and thousands and thousands of volumes of cases that have gone before me. Google can't really help me with that. ChatGPT can, because it goes and if you feed it all that data, it will read through it and say, oh, look at this. It kind of resembles what you're trying to do now. And it can even summarize it. So it not only takes data and searches for you and deep looks into that data, it also organizes information. If you were to ask it, hey, create me I was just using it to create a menu for my camping trip. It did that. And then I said, okay, give me the rest, the ingredients I need to buy. It also did that. So it takes that unstructured data and organizes that data. So that's another strength of it. And it can create content. So it can take past data, and based on that, it can create new content. So based on, I don't know, some famous poet, it can actually write in that poet's style, etc. It can use multiple sources of data and combine them, and it can create new combinations and permutations. I could take a poet and a singer and take their styles and mix them together so it can actually do that. So those are kind of the strengths of it. Now, what are the weaknesses? So weaknesses, outdated information, of course, whatever it's trained on, if it doesn't have that information, it cannot help you. Even the chat GPT live today, at least on the OpenAI version, has a cutoff date. So any data after that, it doesn't have. It can have incorrect or biased information based on whatever data was used to train it. It is prone to hallucination. Nobody has solved that yet, and lots of people are working on that. And that model that we were looking at on the previous slide, the hidden layer, you can't look into the hidden layer. You don't know why it said something. And because it's predictive, it tries to predict what you are looking for, then it has a tendency to try to give you an answer, whatever that answer is. I asked it to write an article on something, and then when I went back and checked it, it gave me quotes, and those were completely fake quotes. It made them up because it was trying to kind of predict, okay, what would this look like? So it made those quotes up based on whatever data it had. It is verbose. It has a generalized output. So sometimes I'll ask it to write on a particular topic. It doesn't know what's in my head. It doesn't know, the finer points that I'm trying to make. It's basically using past data to kind of give you an average of, here's what the average answer should look like. So it's very, very generalized, and it lacks common sense. Sometimes it just doesn't understand something, or doesn't understand what I'm asking it to do. So there is that issue as well. In terms of opportunities, what are the opportunities? Domain-specific expertise. We talked about the legal use case. There's a lot more verticals where it can go to, and you got to understand, big companies build platforms for scale. They're not interested in going out and solving for individual use cases. They want to build a platform, and then they allow other startups to kind of pick that platform and go into specific verticals. Integration with other services, and this is something that, even working at Alexa, I was passionate about. Alexa was awesome, but it was also not that great. What do people use it for? Music and controlling music and asking, the weather. If I wanted to ask Alexa, hey, make me coffee, and she can't, sorry, it might go off here. And it can't make me coffee for my use case. She's dead to me. So it really, if you've got a front end of ChatGPT or something else, what can you use it for, and how do you add value? So that is really, really important. That's where some of this opportunity for startups is. Multilingual support is a big one. Improving reasoning abilities. So, one of the examples is, if I have to write an article, previously I would just open up Word and start typing a skeleton and then start filling it out. Now I use ChatGPT to fill out a blank page. So I don't have that blank page problem. And then I start to kind of add my ideas in there. So it does have some reasoning abilities there in terms of creating a structure, but also reasoning abilities where I can feed it data and it can see the trend. Sometimes I will miss a trend or something, or it will take me a while to get to a trend. But if I feed it data, it can kind of reason a little bit out of that, at least at a basic level. Collecting and structuring data, we talked about that. That's one of the strengths, but it also does it in a generalized way. Can you do it better? Maybe you can. Maybe as a startup, that's the value that the startup brings. And that also could have layered data, because there's the chat GPT data, but you can give it further data to further streamline the training or how you want to use it. And then creating content, somebody here, was talking about, using it for marketing. I think, Corey, you were talking about that. You can use it to create content for your marketing, but always remember to double check, have the human in the loop, because you never know what it spits out, if it's fictitious or insensitive or any of that kind of stuff. In terms of threats, availability and quality of data, some startups will come to you and say, oh, we've got this unique data, and we will be able to do this specific thing using large language models. But having said that, is the data constantly updating? How is it changing? What's the quality of it? You kind of have to ask all those questions when you talk about data. Public perception and trust, that's a pretty big one. You sit in a car, there's no driver there, it just drives you somewhere. Do you trust that? I don't know. Will I trust it? Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I still remember the first time that I pulled out of my garage and my phone went ding. It's going to take 45 minutes for you to get to office, and my office at Amazon was in downtown Seattle. And it took me aback. Like, you're tracking where I live, where I work, when do I leave for it, and then you're giving me this value, but do I really want to accept that? Sometimes people do, sometimes people don't. So that's something that's super important, especially if it displaces people from jobs. Then there can be a lot of public pushback. And there are certain other things. We'll talk a little bit about more of that public stuff in sort of the next slide. Misuse of technology, there's a lot of misuse of technology that can take place. We've got cameras watching us. We live in a free society. How much who's watching you, why are they watching you, who's tracking you, etc. Social cohesion and that's a huge one, the fabric of society. How many truck drivers are there? Over 1 million truck drivers in the US. How many Uber drivers are there? If automation takes over, what are they going to do? How many content writers are there? If this becomes, if you needed 10 content writers before and now you only need 3, what are the 7 that are no longer have jobs? What are they going to do? And that kind of goes to the social fabric of, we had the Industrial Revolution, now we have got the AI revolution, and that's going to have a pushback. So how does that kind of play out? That has to be seen. Regulatory restrictions are kind of tied to that. If there is social pushback, then the mechanism to controlling that is through regulation. And competition, some startups will come to you and say, oh, we're building on top of ChatGPT. Okay, but then anyone can do that. What are you doing that's different? So that competition is also, a lot of this is democratized technology development. You can get the basic code. So how do you really, do you have proprietary data? What are you doing to kind of really build on top of that? So let's jump a little bit into the privacy, content, and regulations. Europe has the European Union's AI Act, and that's kind of the most forward-looking so far. The mindset in Europe is different from the mindset in the US. They tend to regulate early, and we in the US tend to kind of let technology develop, and then when issues arise, we start to regulate them. And we've seen that over and over again. That's kind of the mindset at the top. But we've got, NIST AI risk framework. It's voluntary, it's not mandatory. FDA, FTC, and TIA, they're introducing their own AI rules. And you got to remember how the legislative process works is on the Hill, Congress, House, the president, they create the bills, but the bills are not the rules. So they send them to these agencies, FDAs, FTC, etc., and they take those bills and convert them into rules that every company has to adhere to. And if you've got gridlock on the bill side, then some of these agencies are kind of pushed to fill the vacuum by creating those rules ahead of any laws that are passed. And that's what we see here. Although the different parties have expressed interest in regulating AI, so that's kind of what's happening in the US. Canada, there's the AI and Data Act, and there's other news. There's numerous cases in generative AI. The Drake song that had to be pulled because people thought that it was Drake, but it wasn't really Drake that created it. And there are other, if you're using past data to create the existing kind of new permutation or combination, but you are still using that original data. So there's a fair use policy that the Supreme Court kind of uses to judge how to, do you own the copyright and all of that. But I won't dive deeper into that. That's not, the main focus of this presentation, but those are things to think around. And then there's more news around Italy and Japan, where they're also taking action on what AI can or cannot do. So with that, we're going to jump into the framework for investing in AI startups. Let me kind of take stock and kind of stop there. I know I'm going fairly fast. If there are any questions as of right now, I'm happy to kind of jump on them. Otherwise, we can continue.
There's a couple in the chat. I don't know if you're able to see them.
Yeah. We can start with Caleb's question.
Sure. So I was just curious where you saw quantum computing figuring into the AI conversation.
Absolutely. So quantum computing, you have to look at what is the benefit of quantum computing. Quantum computing's benefit is you can compute faster, quicker, and what that really does is, and just to kind of layman it, you've got 0 to 1s, but that's kind of that limits you to 0, 1. If you could do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 within the same kind of processing, you can do a lot more computation. So what it really does is it improves the efficiency of computing. Now the question becomes that, okay, you've got all of these awesome models that we're building on all of these data centers, if you're using AWS or Google's or Microsoft's, and they're power hungry, they're out there, sitting in the middle of a desert or somewhere. And now there is a trend to take some of those models and create chip sizes of them and miniaturize that deployment of technology. That is where really quantum computing could possibly help. Is, can you take, let's say a translation model and put it in a very tiny chip, and then take that chip and put it in my glasses so that I don't have to wear anything extra, and it just, when I'm speaking, it changes it into Japanese or Chinese or whatever other language. And that's really where I think quantum computing could potentially, I'm not saying it does or it doesn't, could potentially come in, is really helping with that basic value of taking that computational power and miniaturizing it. I hope that kind of answers the question. Any other questions there?
Yes, Linda has a question. She asked, to what extent is Google aware that content like an article was created via ChatGPT, and is Google decreasing or devaluing such content by lowering SEO ranking scores or penalizing it in some way? Linda, feel free to add more.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really know the details of the Google algorithm because that's confidential. Having said that, I think the bigger thing to consider is when you create content using ChatGPT, you should always have a human relook at it and maybe even rework it a little bit. And as you start to do that, you realize that ChatGPT will create content that is kind of average. And as other companies start using the same methodology, because nobody's stopping anyone, then it becomes an average, and you are saying similar things to your competition. And part of marketing is, or even article writing is having different thoughts or different standing out. And as you do that and you take basic ChatGPT results and you change them, then that ability to see, okay, is this really ChatGPT or not, wanes. And that is also one of the issues in academics or education, where you had those software that could detect plagiarism and all of that. But with ChatGPT, that becomes harder and harder to do, because you take that basic content from ChatGPT, you tweak it a little bit, and then you put it there. Did you read those articles, or did you produce that as your own thought, or did you use it with ChatGPT and then added your thought? So those are some of the things to kind of think about. The specifics of how the Google algorithm does that, that's a closely guarded secret. So I wouldn't be able to kind of dive deeper into that. Having said that, I think one other thing to kind of consider is, there is also, is there a shift in search going from Google to ChatGPT. Increasingly, I find myself, what I was going to Google, I go and search for it on ChatGPT. I know ChatGPT doesn't link me to all the websites and all of that yet, but a lot of the information that I'm trying to get, as an example, I was giving, what will I cook on my 7-day camping trip? I can simply give it to ChatGPT and it will create a list for me, as opposed to on Google, where I'll Google it, it'll go and find me a whole bunch of websites, and then I have to browse those websites and try and make that myself. Now ChatGPT can do it itself. So there is a shift in usage as well. And that's what, sort of Bing is trying to get, is to give you best of both worlds, where you've got, or with Brad, is you kind of mix the two, where you've got the websites and page ranks, and you've got the large language model, and mix the benefits of the two.
And I can actually add in a little bit more very quickly, which is just publicly what Google had initially said, is that they were going to lower the ranking of results that showed traces to be primarily generated by GPT models. But since then, they have said that they're going to rate them in a more equal way. But there may be some level of figuring in that ChatGPT or some other type of generative model has actually helped with that. So there is some recognition on the Google side. I've previously worked at Google, so I've had these conversations with some of the folks that work there. So initially, they were going to lower results, but they can tell, or at least they say that they can tell, but they have since followed up and said that they won't lower results, but they will try to prioritize higher quality content. So that could mean a mixture of both something that is generated by GPT and also edited as well.
Yeah, thank you for that input. And I think, it kind of goes, there are two things that talks towards. One is the ability to actually be able to distinguish the content. And on the other side, the value of that content to end customers, because if it is valuable, then why would Google downgrade that content? So if the content that you create is valuable to end customers and you've got traffic on your website, then Google will rejig their algorithm, which they're constantly evolving, to kind of produce that to the end customers. Okay, let's we are at 12.
I'm sorry. I think Linda also wanted to say something.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was just gonna piggyback of what you're saying, is because the thing that came to mind, what you said about you're now using ChatGPT to, quote unquote, Google things instead of Googling things, and therefore you're not going to people's websites. And so then you have to figure out, okay, well, what's SEO good for? Or how do I get people to my website as a marketer if I'm not going? And I think that's just kind of what I'm thinking. But it's like, okay, well, that is the reason why maybe Google wants to track down, because it is maybe not a direct competitor, but it is a competitor. And so I don't know if marketers need to think about it differently, how to get people to click on something and essentially buy something or get interested in something that they didn't even realize they were interested in before, right? Like that whole education piece just seems to be kind of a little bit waning, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And this is something that, we saw in, for example, Alexa. When you Google something, you've got pages and pages of results, and you can kind of parse through them and kind of click through them. But if you ask the question off of Google Assistant or Alexa or Siri, then they can only give you one answer. And so if you ask what's the weather outside, you can't go to 5 different websites. There's one website that's going to give the answer. So that sort of diminishes the ability for people to kind of browse through all that information. And so the value of what you're giving to the end customer becomes more and more important. And we'll see a hybrid world where large language models, and we already see that with Brad and Bing, where they're trying to merge the two together, where you've got the large language models that can organize and sift through that data, but you also have some ability to kind of go and learn more about them. But then it becomes a 2-step process. Instead of giving you a page with all these links, it gives you information, and then if you want to dive deeper, you click and then you go to a website. So absolutely, it fundamentally changes how people search and discover information and products on the internet. So with that, let me kind of continue. We still have a little bit to cover here. I'll come back to more questions, and those are awesome questions. So frameworks for investing in AI startups. So how do you invest in an AI startup? Let me start off by, here's kind of the areas which any investor would look at. You've got problem, solution, market, technology, team, financials, risks and challenges. If you are an investor that wants to manage risk more, then you're going to focus on product market fit. And if you are an investor who wants to take risk because high risk, high returns, you'll focus more in investing in capabilities and teams because they're earlier stage, they may pivot, but then you get more in terms of dollar value for that particular company. But of course, the risk is also higher. So let me just gonna take this out of my way. Thank you. So let's go back to that basic the areas. And if you're medium risk, that's how I typically assign percentages to each one of those areas. If you are, if you want less risk or mitigate the risk, you'll probably change that percentage to something like this, with a greater focus on traction, market opportunity, and problem and solution. Because if you figured out the product market fit and the problem solution, there is a higher chance that the company will succeed. But if you are willing to take risks, you would focus more on technology and team, and trust that problem and solution and traction will come in the future. So the reason this distinction is important is because you may have companies that are AI experiments, but you believe in the tech and team and may still want to invest. And that is higher risk AI investing. On the other hand, if you see a good problem and a need and an opportunity and the traction, then it's a lower risk investment. And I also want you to remember that, okay, hiring an engineer and spinning up a team, what's the salary of a typical engineer? $200,000 here in Seattle. So if you want to have a 4-member team or a 5-member team, that's quite a big expense. So sometimes a lot of big companies as well are going to outsource their experimentation by writing a $200,000 check, a $300,000 check to a startup. That doesn't mean that startup has found the product market fit. It might still be an experiment. So bear that in mind as you look at these kind of models to invest. So from there, what are the questions you should be asking startups, or what are the questions startups should be ready to answer? You've got the problem and solution, technology and team. Those are the areas that I like to focus on for AI specific companies. Within problem and solution, there's of course problem, solution, and product market fit. Technology, there is core technology, data strategy, uniqueness, and performance metrics. And then within team, what is the technical expertise and / uniqueness of the team. So let's jump a little deeper into that problem and solution. Who's the customer and what's the problem? And is that something, whatever you're solving for, will customers pay for that? And you might say, you know what, that's a question that we ask every startup. Absolutely it is. But that's where you also need to start with AI companies, because you have to tie the value they're creating for customers to how they're creating that value using AI. So the next kind of question becomes, okay, what is the solution and how is AI part of that solution? And what is AI specifically doing towards delivering that solution? Remember that example of, I want Alexa to make me coffee, but it can't. So that's a very particular solution to a specific problem for a specific customer. And is AI helping in delivering that or not? That's the problem and solution where we need to focus on. Because we've got all these companies that approach us and go like, oh, I'm using ChatGPT to tell you to better close on your sales pipelines. Okay, how are you doing that? What specifically is AI doing? And remember back to those models that we look at for looking at AI. How is that AI technology actually delivering that solution? Which core technology it is, and how is it being used to deliver that solution? Have you already built it out, or are you still experimenting? And how are you implementing it? Is it in-house versus 3P technology? I've had so many companies approach me, and it's all about AI. They're something.ai. And then when you dive deeper, sometimes I find AI is an afterthought, is just the buzz, and they think they'll be able to raise money, and therefore they're putting AI in there. Sometimes it's, oh, we'll just leverage ChatGPT to do this. And it's like, okay, but then what's your competitive advantage? Like if you can do it, anyone can use ChatGPT. What is the value you are adding? And then what is the efficacy of the solution? You're saying sentiment analysis. We will use ChatGPT to do sentiment analysis of financial reporting from companies. Okay, what's the efficacy of it? Is that really true to the market or not? And how are you achieving that? And in terms of data, you might hear, oh, we've got proprietary data to do that. Okay, is that proprietary just from one company? And do you have exclusive deal with them? And does that mean that it's going to be a fragmented market and different companies will give their data to different startups, and therefore you'll have 5 different or 10 different competitors? Maybe that's okay, but that limits the ability for a startup to grow beyond a certain size. And why do you believe your data is unique? Like, what is in that data that will help you achieve that? What you've defined with the earlier question in terms of the value you're bringing to the end customer. What makes your technology unique? If you're adding more value on top of, for example, ChatGPT, what makes your technology unique? Is it the model, the way you've tweaked it? Why can't others just copy it? And then the team, what's your competitive advantage as a team? So those are some of the questions that I would ask startups in kind of those buckets when they approach me, and or if you're a startup, you should be ready to answer. With that, we're kind of sort of at the end here. Any questions here?
Yeah, Romero, go ahead.
Thank you. If you consider AI on a spectrum, and on one side you have the potential, I mean, what you describe in terms of assessing startups for investing, so that's a potential, right? Let's see, on the spectrum you have on the far right side, you have the potential. Before that, you have AI currently disrupting something. Before that, you have AI currently helping something, not disrupting, but helping. And before that, you have AI just a buzzword, right? So in that spectrum, so do you have or would you share your point of view, a vision or examples that will help us assess in that spectrum, how should we think about AI in that spectrum currently?
Yeah, I think that is a great question. And The answer to that question is, AI is not new. I've been working on UAVs and stuff like that 15 years ago, and that was also AI. What's new is really a little bit of a marketing coup in terms of what OpenAI did and how they launched. A little bit of neural networks coming of age and transformer models with unsupervised learning. So when you look at that spectrum, you can have technologies such as the one we were talking about, pick and pack, that that are already there, that are helping reduce the cost of picking and packing. So when you actually look at that, you have to kind of look at, okay, what is the actual value that you're bringing to the customer? You're bringing the value of delivering products that they've selected. Now, in that, there's a big number of events that needs to happen. One is customers need to be able to search and find what they're looking for. There is an AI component embedded in there. There is, okay, I found something, now I've ordered it. You need to be able to have those products placed in the nearest warehouse to you so that it can get to you as quickly as possible. This is technology. This is not new technology. Amazon has been doing that for the last 10 years and kind of optimizing those products placement nearest you. Then there is, okay, we need to be able to pull this out and then push it into the shipping and then get it to the customer. And that was being done by humans, and now increasingly you can get it done by machines. So in that context, it's both helping and disrupting. It's helping over the overall arc of the value that it's generating for end customers, but it's helping in those individual tasks. And some of those tasks, it can, it's not kind of take it or leave it. A machine can do it or a human can do it. A lot of times it's a mix and match. Sometimes, for example, picking and packing is not that simple. You've got odd size objects. Sometimes it gets expired. Sometimes it's a whole range of things, and you need the human in the loop to figure out is this being done right or not. So in that context, a lot of it is helping. As technology kind of learns and becomes more and more optimized, it can go from helping to taking over certain tasks, but it's still super early in the evolution of AI, as we saw in some of those models. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, totally. So I'm just wondering if, as a follow-up, if given the intensity of the buzz with AI, if this buzz will happen to be similar to what happened with big data, that was in everybody's agendas, and suddenly it just died, right? I mean, not died, but it went diminished significantly. So I'm wondering if something similar you see, for AI.
Absolutely. Again, very good question. So the question is, is this some of those technologies that we looked at in the second slide? It's going to die off, or is this really going to take off like the internet? I think the answer is sort of in the middle. The thing is, it has been around a long time, and some things are brand new. And I see a few more questions. I'll come to you guys in a quick second. The thing is, it depends on how quickly the technology is going to diffuse, and what is the value that it's bringing to customers for them to accept it faster or slower. And AI is already around us. I understand ChatGPT is brand new, but AI is already there. Like I said, you order something, you get it in 2 hours. AI did part of that. It helped in do part of that. So AI will continue to do some of those things. But like I said, does it completely change? One of the companies I was looking at, they said, okay, we're going to take out editors and copywriters because now AI can do that. Well, it can't. It can't create those relationships with people. It can't go out into the field and interview people. It can't read between the lines. It can generate generalized content. So does that help a copywriter in terms of if it took them 5 hours to write a story, now it only takes them 2. Yes, it does. But does it replace them? No, it doesn't. And there's something that I also want to kind of address more fundamentally in terms of our uneasiness with AI. But I will come back to that. I've got a slide on that or a quick video that I want to share. But let me kind of get a few more questions here, and then I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
I see. Go ahead, Fish.
Yeah, let's start with Wilfred, and then we'll go to John and Kieran.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So Wilfred asks, what is the number one thing we can do today to prepare ourselves for the near future as someone who is self-employed / entrepreneur? If you want to add more, feel free, Wilfred.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great question. The number one thing is to be a lifelong learner and to take that technology and adapt. Don't panic. That's the first thing. The AI, you have to kind of start to change your working patterns and see where AI helps you and fits in. That's one thing. I've explained already that, instead of me Googling stuff, I use ChatGPT or Brad or Bing to kind of and see where does it add value. And I can do some of this, even this presentation that I did today here. Some of this stuff I used OpenAI to kind of give me some answers to better inform what I'm going to say here. So those are some of the things that you can do today. Keep abreast of what's happening, and then see what your personal, and this is personal to everyone, what your core competencies are and where you can fit in that paradigm shift that is happening. So and go back to, if you need to go back to school to kind of learn about some of these things, you're already here, you're already preparing yourself for the future. So those are some of the things that you can do to stay ahead of the curve and kind of really see how things are going to change. And we can dive deeper into, some industries are going to keep growing in the future. Healthcare is a big one that AI cannot do. And when I say healthcare, I don't mean become a doctor. I mean, we've got an aging population. How do we help them? Climate change. AI is not going to solve climate change. Let's be very, very clear. It can give us ideas, but it's not going to solve it. Water scarcity, food scarcity, those are problems that AI is not going to solve. So how do you find verticals where you can add value and maybe you can get into those verticals? And how do you take AI and bring it into whatever you're doing and become a better better user of that AI to deliver on your core competency? Next question.
Thank you.
Oh, John?
Hi, thank you. It was a good presentation. I'm curious about your thoughts regarding bias, and in particular, how investors might evaluate startups who are talking about using quote unquote AI to improve processes for businesses, and then they may make a claim that they eliminate bias. So I'll start there, but I think that's sort of an open-ended question.
Yeah, I think there are two elements to it. There is the data that you're using element, so you can go and look at that data and try to figure out how biased it is. And there is a post usage of that data, which is, okay, we built this technology, let's test it out. Let's give it somebody who looks like you, somebody who looks like me, somebody who looks like somebody else here, and see how it kind of responds. And so those are the two ways that you can kind of look at it, is did you build mechanisms in the data itself to be inclusive of gender, race, religion, whatever it is. And then on the other side, as well as languages, my accent might be different from yours or from somebody else's. So does that training data include that diversity? And then, okay, I've now built a product. Did I test it across the spectrum? And was I able to kind of, is it able to handle all of these? Can it handle my face versus your face, etc.? So really test it thoroughly on a mix of demographics and all of that. So those are kind of the two ways I would look at it.
So I think as a follow-on, you're saying that it's important to audit the assumptions, but also in this case, audit the data set that is the input as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's the pre-built and data you're training it, and and by the way, that's one of the things that you'll see some startups come up that do just that. They will come in, they will audit, are you diverse or not? Is your technology handling all diversity out there or not? So you can do it in-house. You can also hire outside companies to do some of that testing.
Hi, my question is related to maybe industrial controls and sort of not the human side of it, but if people are using statistics and machine learning to predict things or forecast things or change processes to improve human efficiency, would they be classified under an AI type of company, or how would they classify companies that are pure AI? Do they have to be autonomous?
So I think that's a great question. I think there are two parts to it. The first one is pure AI or not. Pure AI is really, it goes back to that earlier slide that I had there. Let me kind of go back to it. So
limited memory is what I'm talking about.
Yes, so that's fine. You're talking about limited memory, but if you look at this slide, let's stay on this slide. The question is, what is the problem and what's the solution that you're delivering to customers? What is the value you're getting to the customers? And I'll use that example of me wanting coffee. Now, making coffee is the main thing. If I talk about Amazon, buying that product and getting it to me is the main thing. But in both those cases, AI can help deliver a better experience. I have to walk to my kitchen, I have to empty my coffee holder, I have to refill it, then I have to put water in, then I have to wait for it to make it, then I have to pour it in a cup, and then I have to bring it back to my office. Now that's a whole bunch of different steps. Can I talk to my machine using AI? Yes, I can. In some cases, could the machine use AI to kind of do it itself? Yeah, probably it can. It can automate. It's way down at the bottom of the pyramid, but it could do it. It could actually make that coffee. Can it? So in those cases, can it predict that I'm going to drink coffee at 10 a.m. and then at 2 p.m.? So can it pre-make that when I come down, it's already made? Those are all uses of AI. But what's the core value? Is actually making coffee. That was the initial core value. What's the augmented product? Augmented product is, okay, making coffee, then it's, okay, the convenience of having it, not having to walk to the kitchen to make it, to convenience of not even having to talk to my machine to make it. So that's how you go up the value chain, and it becomes more and more valuable. But if you can't make the coffee, the other pieces, they will fall by the wayside. So that's the way to look at it. If you order something on Amazon and it can't deliver it to you, it doesn't matter how much AI they have or they don't have, it's just not going to work. And so when you look at a startup, and your question, the other part of your question was, is it pure AI or not? It kind of depends on what's the value that you're creating. Are you using AI to really create that value? Or are you using, and what slider scale of AI do you have in terms of how much more AI is part of in terms of delivering that value? I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks. Just a follow-up. A lot of the examples you gave earlier can be done without AI. The question I have is, how do you determine that the use case actually benefits from AI and not from alternative ways of doing the same thing and calling it AI?
Well, I think so that is actually a good question, because I'll give you another example. I did due diligence on this company. I know the CEO of this company, and what they are doing, and I can mention the name here, Curie. And what they're doing is they're taking 2D images and making 3D models out of it. And it's got a lot of different applications. You order stuff and you return it because it's not the right size, as just one use case. And now you can point the camera towards your foot and it'll measure, it'll not only show you what the shoe will look like on your foot, but it'll also measure your foot. So that's kind of they started off by doing a lot of that manually, and then they transitioned to doing part of it with AI, and then they increased the scale of how much they're doing it using AI and decrease the human component to it. And as they gather data, they're trying to get towards full AI. So I don't think there is an either or. It depends from situation to situation, but it is absolutely okay to say this is what we want to do using AI, but we're first going to test our assumptions using humans and do a Wizard of Oz testing and get to AI. There are a few other companies that I talked to, that were all about AI. And when I did due diligence, it figured that, AI was kind of, phase 3 or 4. And my feedback to those founders was, that's okay, but be upfront with it. Don't come to investors to say, I'm all about AI. And when they do due diligence, it's like, yeah, we'll do AI in 3 years' time, or we'll get there. If that's the case, you are losing trust with your investors. And that's, trust is the most important thing you have with customers, with investors, with your employees, with your employers, and don't lose that. So if AI, you're going to implement it, just say that up front, that we are aspirationally AI, or this is our product roadmap. We're going to start off by doing it human to do the traction and then get to AI, which is perfectly fine, because investors want you to test the market and then implement it. Because if you are going to spend all your money implementing, all sorts of models and then fail, I would rather invest in a company that kind of proves the traction first and then builds the item. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I don't want to let others ask questions, but a follow-up would be just, I've come from a background of doing expert system, rule-based knowledge and ML and statistics. And now when I see the AI term, it seems like it encompasses all of that. So I'm kind of wondering, how do you classify or test a company to be truly an AI based, or it's using one of the predefined statistical models that we already know?
Yeah, I would, here's the quick answer to that is, why is it important for a company to be classified as AI or not? That's all our construct. The end customer doesn't care if it's AI or not. What they care about is you delivering the value to them. If it's delivered through using AI and it uses it better, then I will buy an AI company's products. And if it uses humans and delivers it better or cheaper or whatever the competitive benefit or to that is, then I will buy it using that. So this is really, customers don't care how you implement this solution. Customers only care, is it better and does it deliver value to their use case? So I'm happy to continue the conversation offline, but that's kind of my answer to that. Any other questions?
Yeah, Kathleen made a quick comment saying that AI roughly equals applied statistics, right? How would you respond to that?
Absolutely, it does. In a lot of cases, it's all about statistics. But in other cases, it's not as well. Organizing data. There's parts of statistics, but part of it is, okay, how do you take data and put it in a way that people understand? So statistics still forms the basis of a lot of AI. It uses past data to inform future, but there are other elements to it. So absolutely, you're right. Ramiro, you have a question?
Yes, on if you think of machine learning as a discipline of AI, what happened to all that excitement about machine learning? I mean, is it something that that died off because the use cases require, I mean, outside of big tech, it's very difficult to justify just because of the sheer amount of data that you need for that. A, B, is it all that excitement is still there, but now under a new buzzword, which is AI? C, something else.
No, it's still there, but it's a new buzzword. When you look at ChatGPT, what is it doing? It is doing machine learning. It's doing it in a different way. It's using neural networks and transformer models. So none of this is static. Things are evolving, and the terminology is evolving. When you look at ChatGPT, that's part of the beauty of it, is the way it's learning. And it mimics it makes you uncomfortable when you talk to it. You start to ask all these questions around, okay, if AI can do all of these and it can answer these questions, who am I? Like, what job am I doing? Will AI replace me? Will I, and that's one of the questions that had come up, will AI be the end of humans and human civilization? And I don't think so. The answer to that is AI is still very much predictive. It is using past data to inform future. And that, I think, is a very good segue to something else that I wanted to kind of share on your previous conversation. So I'm going to play this clip of Joseph Campbell on the meaning of life, and let's see if that kind of helps answer the question around, will AI replace humans or not?
People say that what we're all seeking is a meaning for life. I don't think that's what we're really seeking. I think what we're seeking is an experience of being alive, so that the life experiences that we have on the purely physical plane will have resonances within that are those of our own innermost being and reality. And so that we actually feel the rapture of being alive. That's what it's all finally about, and that's what these clues help us to find within ourselves. The mind has to do with meaning. In here, what's the meaning of a flower? That Zen story of the sermon of the Buddha, when his whole company was gathered and he simply lifted a flower. And there's only one man, Kashyapa, who gave him a sign with his eye that he understood what was said. What's the meaning of the universe? What's the meaning of a flea? It's just there, that's it. And your own meaning is that you're there. Now we are so engaged in doing things to achieve purposes of outer value that we forget that the inner value, the rapture that is associated with being alive is what it's all about.
So that's, I don't think AI is anywhere close to kind of existing for the sake of existing. So that's kind of my take on it. Does that mean that it is going to fundamentally change the society that we live in? Absolutely. And we've seen the Industrial Revolution, and this is a new, we saw internet. Now we are seeing a new type of revolution. With that, that's about it. If you guys want to connect with me, I have my LinkedIn shared here. I think Fish, you shared it as well. And hopefully, we all kind of learned something from this, and I'm also learning all the time. So thank you for all the awesome questions. Anything else anyone wants to ask?
I have a quick question just for everybody, since it's related to the Seattle Angels. So for any angel investors here, or anybody who has an AI company that want to pitch to angel investors, what would be your suggestions in terms of investing in AI companies as an angel, or vice versa? Yeah, I think there are a few tips. One is, of course, the one that's truly dear to my heart is trust, and that's something I learned at Amazon. Somebody asked Jeff Bezos, "What's the most important thing Amazon has?" And he could have said 500 different things. He could have said AI. He didn't. He said
customer trust is the most important thing. And I think that goes to employee trust, it goes to investor trust, it goes to all, trust is the most important thing. So if you're pitching a startup that has elements of AI, be upfront about it. If it uses what is the value that you're bringing, and how does AI kind of build into that value? Are you aspirationally AI? It's okay to be aspirationally AI, but if you pretend to be an AI company and raise money, you're going to have problems down the line. And so that's one. The second one is always focus on the customer and the value you're bringing to the customer. That is the key. AI, not AI, those are all, customers don't care if it's AI or not. What they care about, they may care about novelty, but they do care about what is the value that you're delivering to them. So don't lose focus of that value. The third one is, what is your core competency? How are you different? If there's 500 other guys that are doing the same sentiment analysis using ChatGPT, what do you bring to the table? Like, why are you different? Why do you think you're going to survive? A fourth one is, are you a lifestyle or a mid-size company, or are you building a bigger platform? Be clear about it. There's nothing wrong to say I'm building a mid-size sort of company and that's it. I forgot if I'm on number 4 or number 5, but the next one would be keep a track of what's happening, both in terms of technology and in terms of the legal space. And I see Brian's here. So what are the regulations that are going down, coming down the pipeline? If you create new content, and we were talking about content earlier, and you're going to get sued because you created that content based on a model that uses, I don't know, Drake's song or something, then you will be shut down pretty fast. So I would, or at least you are opening yourself for litigation, and no startup wants to spend time being litigated against. You've got bigger fish to fry in terms of creating customer value. So be mindful of where you're stepping, how are you stepping, and what are the regulations that are coming down the pipeline. So I think those are the key ones that come to my mind.
Hey, can we get your deck? There were a couple slides in there that were really good. I'd like to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Fish, I can share this deck with you, and or if you want to email me directly, I can copy paste this in here so that.
Yeah. No problem. I just connected officially on LinkedIn with you, so I'll just drop you a note.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah,
okay.
Maybe whomever wants, whomever wants the deck, feel free to send your email in the chat, and I can do a group email with the deck.
Yeah, oh, sorry, I shared it just with you, so let me share it with everyone here. Cool. There we go. So please feel free to send me a note, connect on LinkedIn. And I'm happy to have any follow-ups if anyone wants to jump deeper into any specific topic.
Thanks a lot, On.
Thank you.
Yeah, if there is no more questions, there are 2 events with Seattle Angel happening next week. On Tuesday, we have what investors look for in your cash flow projection. And on Thursday, we have help investors help you keys to a compelling investor-focused pitch. You can find these events in Meetup under Seattle Angel. And I also sent it in the chat, but I will send it again over here. Yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to stay behind. But other than that, thank you guys so much for this wonderful session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fish.
Thank you, On.
Yeah.
Thank you, On.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Fish.
Fish, I think you might need to stop the recording.
Yes, I will.